The PC gave us computing power at home, the internet connected us, and mobile let us do it pretty much anywhere. Now generative AI lets us communicate with technology in our own language using our own senses. But figuring it all out when you're living through it is a totally different story. Welcome to Leading the Shift, a new podcast from Microsoft Azure. I'm your host, Susan Ettlinger. In each episode, leaders will share what they're learning to help you navigate all this change with confidence. Please join us. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome. I'm Roger Stone, and this is the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Network. If you love politics, well, you're in the right place, because we eat, sleep, breathe, and talk about politics. Sometimes we get into some other topics, style, food. I do like to eat. We talk about that, but you're in the right place for a political discussion. I am, of course, a veteran of 13 national presidential campaigns, starting with Richard Milhouse Nixon, working 3 times for Governor Ronald Reagan, working for Senator Bob Dole, who would have been a great American president, and, of course, more recently, probably the first man in America to suggest that Donald J. Trump should seek the presidency. I saw early that he had the capacity not only to be a great presidential candidate, but also a truly great president. And now he has scored the second, probably the first greatest comeback in American political history. Richard Nixon was probably the previous record holder in this regard. And last Friday night, my wife and I were invited to Mar-a-Lago to watch the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight, along with President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Tucker Carlson, my good friend Jack Posobiec from Human Events. It was interesting because the president said, join us in the small private bar to watch the show after dinner. And a Secret Service agent, obviously didn't recognize me, said, by the way, sir, don't speak to the president while the fight is going on. I said, don't worry. It was an amazing fight. Because I'm an old guy, I was cheering for Iron Mike Tyson, and he went the distance. To me, that was the key. He went the distance. So even though they gave the fight to Jake Paul on points, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson both being strong supporters of Donald Trump, I kind of felt it was a win-win situation. I had the time of my life. President couldn't get over how great my wife looks after surviving a very aggressive stage 4 cancer. It was a great, great night, and I appreciate the president inviting us. I was sifting through the statistics, looking at this incredible election, and one thing that jumped out at me was that Native Americans, those are Native Americans who belong to Indian tribes, voted 64% for President Donald Trump, which is extraordinary because federally recognized Indian tribes who are currently operating multi-million-dollar casino monopolies under the 1988 Indian Gaming Act, which was signed into law actually by President Ronald Reagan, have emerged now as the second biggest donor to Kamala Harris and her campaign, to the Democrat National Committee, and to the Democrat senatorial and congressional committees. They conversely gave $5.8 million to Democrats. They gave $21,000 to President Donald Trump. Kind of strange, because any current federal law that has benefited Native Americans was passed either by or under President Richard Nixon, who had probably the most pro-Indian administration in the 20th century, not only signed the Indian Health Care Act, but essentially enacted the Indian Education Act, and made it possible for federally recognized Indian tribes that had unjustly lost their federal recognition, some of whom had signed treaties with our country, and also lost their land. It was President Nixon who set up a legal structure by which they could get both their recognition and their land back. And if their land was not available, well, then they could get land in trust. And then, as I say, President Ronald Reagan signed the 1988 Indian Gaming Act, which allows certain tribes with pre-1988 land to operate multi-million-dollar casinos, like those out there in Connecticut. So if the rank and file Native Americans voted 64%, you have to wonder why their tribal leadership gave overwhelmingly to Kamala Harris. Just kind of an interesting factoid there. I saw that President Trump flew to Washington to meet with President Joe Biden. A lot of smiles all the way around. Joe Biden looked very, very happy to me when I noticed that Jill Biden, his wife, had worn a flaming red dress to the go out and vote. I saw immediately that something was up. And then I heard this kind of a parody audio. Listen to this.
Tough break for Cammy, huh?
You just started a war.
No, I just finished one.
I am going to do everything in my power to end you.
Listen here, I've been around a lot longer than you.
Yeah, no.
You never understood how this really works. You were always a good soldier for them, but not me. I didn't get plucked out of nowhere like you did. I spent 40 years hiding skeletons for those.
I knew you were stupid, but this is insane. You really don't know the enemies you just made. We are going to erase you from history.
Oh, like I give a I've made my bed. I'll lay in it. I know my family's protected. How about yours? How long do you think before investigations start? How long do you think you'll stay useful to them? Besides, give yourself some credit. You were the one that dared him to run, but now I gave him the Oval Office. How about you?
Joe, what the did you do?
I don't remember. I'm just a crazy old man, right?
Did you make a deal with him?
Like I said, my family's protected. Hold on, I got someone who wants to talk to you.
Hello, Barry. It's been quite a long time, hasn't it?
This isn't over.
I'm not an idiot, Barry. I just play one on TV.
Hysterical. Absolutely hysterical. Well, it's absolutely true that they forced Joe Biden out against his will, and he clearly resented that. Who wouldn't? I suspect, this is just an opinion, that Joe and Jill probably voted for Donald J. Trump. It is also interesting as we see the Trump team out of the gates quickly with their appointments. Congressman Waltz from upstate northern Florida going as the national security advisor. Pete Hegseth to the Defense Department. You know him from Fox. Tom Homan, tough-talking guy, friend of mine, named as the immigration czar. Kristi Noem appointed to Homeland Security. Well, my dogs don't like that one much. Robert F. Kennedy appointed to the Health and Human Services, where hopefully he will also oversee the FDA, the CDC, to start taking a hard look at the problem of chronic childhood disease and obesity. It's an exciting time to be alive. One thing did disturb me, however, and that was a story in Fox that said that former Congressman Mike Rogers went to Mar-a-Lago to audition for the job of FBI director. This is a gigantic mistake because Congressman Rogers was the chief apologist for the mass surveillance policies that allowed President Donald Trump to be spied upon and sabotaged by the unaccountable deep state bureaucrats. He lost a winnable Senate race in Michigan. Now he wants to be the next Christopher Wray, or perhaps it's Bill Barr. I'm not sure. But I do know this. The appointment of Mike Rogers, to the FBI position would be an egregious mistake, and I hope that the president goes elsewhere. The man I think should be appointed, again, an opinion, was right here on the Roger Stone Show, was with us last Sunday. That's Kash Patel. Kash Patel, a former chief counsel to the House Intelligence Committee, helped produce the report of that committee under Chairman Devin Nunes that proved that there was no Russian collusion, never was, and that was a hoax. I hope the president will follow my recommendation, but he's his own man. He does his own thing. Kash Patel, however, not only a former prosecuting attorney who has prosecuted over 60 intelligence cases, and when it comes to the FBI, knows exactly where the bodies are buried. Well, he is the guy who I think would be a great FBI director. If you're just tuning in, this is Roger Stone. This is the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Network. Now, don't touch that dial because we'll be right back.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
You want the best for your vision, and that starts with where you go. Essilor experts are independent eye care professionals who will listen carefully to your vision preferences and recommend Essilor lenses with the latest technologies to correct and protect your eyes. Find your local Essilor expert at Essilor.com.
Grandpa's here!
Hank's always helping out. Grandpa style. Now he's treating his prostate cancer with help from Xtandi enzalutamide. Xtandi 40 milligram tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRESS, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat start swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache. Talk to your doctor and visit Xtandi.com.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back on the Roger Stone Show right here on the Red Apple Audio Network. Now would be an excellent time for you go to the App Store on your cell phone and download the Red Apple Audio Network app. That way you won't miss any of the amazing program we have here at Red Apple. Of President Donald Trump's historic appointments, the one that I, of course, am most pleased about is that of Tulsi Gabbard. She was on this very show last week. She is, of course, a former four-term Democrat candidate for president, a four-term congresswoman who ran for president as a Democrat in 2020. She's also a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. She's a crack shot, and she has, of course, served her country in combat in both Kuwait and Iraq. Her appointment is driving the deep state absolutely insane. She has a great book called Leaving the Democrat Party Behind, which is an explanation of her odyssey. See, when she joined the Democrat Party, she told me it was the party of peace. Today, it is the party of war. She would become a Republican. She was an independent, became a Republican just before the election, and I think that was a solid decision. I will say right now, she may be the most impressive communicator that I have seen since the great Ronald Reagan, but Congresswoman Deborah Wasserman Schultz of Florida, you remember her, she was the chairwoman of the Democrat National Committee when they hijacked the party rules to stop Bernie Sanders from beating Hillary Clinton, she told CNN that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset. No, she actually accused Tulsi Gabbard, without any proof whatsoever, of being a traitor to her country. This is disgraceful, largely because those who were following closely know that when the Awan brothers, two kind of shady Iranian brothers who were hired as consultants to Deborah Wasserman Schultz, were under federal investigation, the Capitol Hill police briefed Congresswoman Deborah Wasserman Schultz about their investigation into the two brothers, and that they had been blocked from access to the U.S. House of Representatives website. It was at that point that Deborah Wasserman Schultz gave both of the Awan brothers a passcode that allowed them to still access the U.S. House of Representatives website, only they did so now as employees of the House rather than consultants. This, of course, would mean that Deborah Wasserman Schultz was an accessory because they were charged with stealing both data and money through the U.S. House system. It is outrageous that this charge can be made, but of course it isn't the first time. Hillary Clinton, when she ran for president, when Tulsi Gabbard ran for president, and she tackled Vice President Kamala Harris, then a U.S. Senator, about the discrepancy between her saying, with that annoying laugh, she had smoked marijuana in college while listening to Biggie and Tupac, which is, of course, impossible because neither one of them were known or recording at the time that Kamala was in Congress, and squaring that with Kamala Harris's record of arresting and prosecuting over 1,500 people of color for the first time nonviolent crime of possession of small amounts of marijuana. After that incredible act, Hillary Clinton said that Tulsi Gabbard was a Russian spy. Tulsi Gabbard sued Hillary Clinton, but unfortunately under our current libel laws, it is virtually impossible to get justice when you are a public figure under the New York Times versus Sullivan Supreme Court decision. So sadly, that case did not go anywhere. But Deborah Wasserman Schultz should be ashamed of herself. The other big appointment that has drawn attention, of course, is my own home state senator, Marco Rubio, as the Secretary of State. Marco Rubio is a good friend, been very good to my family, helped my wife get into an experimental program for cancer at NIH that certainly played a role in saving her life. Now, he's been an ardent anti-communist and has worked against the regimes in Venezuela and Cuba. And although he ran against Donald Trump in 2016, they have forged a close personal relationship. But that then means that Senator Rubio's seat in the U.S. Senate is vacant, or will be, at the time that he resigns to seek or take office as Secretary of State. Now, under the law, Governor Ron DeSantis, who ran against President Donald Trump, will be allowed to make an appointment to the seat. There is some speculation that he will appoint Lara Trump, who is, of course, the daughter-in-law of President Donald Trump. Listen, I think she would be great, but at the end of the day, I predict to you right now that Ron DeSantis will appoint a caretaker to fill the seat so he can run for the seat himself when it comes up in the next election, which would be a special election in 2026. I changed my party registration to Libertarian last week, just in case I have to jump into that race, because I don't want Ron DeSantis, who I view as a backstabbing ingrate who Donald Trump made governor in that U.S. Senate seat. I'm Roger Stone. It's the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Network. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom, The Dark Ages. Available now on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Rated M for mature.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone. Now, it's time for Protecting Your Future, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Here's Roger Stone.
While we celebrate President Donald Trump's historic win, don't be fooled, folks, because inflation continues to drain the value of your IRA and your 401k. And China is targeting your money with a kill shot at the U.S. dollar. That's why thousands of Americans are shielding their savings with precious metals like gold and silver, and why they're contacting the Colonial Metals Group. The Colonial Metals Group are the only folks I trust to help you bulletproof your wealth, and you do it with gold. So go to freegoldguide.com/stone to get all your questions answered. That's freegoldguide.com/stone. You'll be glad you did. Joining me now is the man himself, Paul Stone, an Air Force veteran who became a broker, then a financial planner, until he started talking, thinking, researching, studying about the value of precious metals like gold and silver when it comes to protecting your nest egg, your retirement. He is our sponsor here, and we're glad to have him. Paul Stone, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Yes, sir, Mr. Stone. I'm so glad to be back on. Great to talk with you. Hope you're well.
I'm doing great. A disclaimer right at the top. Paul Stone and I are not related, but we think so similarly that we could be. We are very excited about this election. Paul, of course, was personally a supporter of the president. We were exchanging texts furtively in those final days, praying for what would come, the greatest victory, the greatest comeback in American political history. So, Paul, that's a good place to start. Your thoughts, your impressions on the event of this tumultuous victory by Donald J. Trump.
You know, it's thank you for asking me that, because I love to speak about this. I'm so inspired, just purely by a human being who wanted something, wanted to give something. So he's not going to the White House for fame and fortune. He already has that, right? So many others are probably motivated by that lofty position to fulfill their value or give them validation that they're a great human being. Look what they accomplished. They're the president of the United States. Donald Trump wanted that post to make in the country that has given him so much opportunity, a builder that had never done anything, his father in Manhattan. Very hard to break into that real estate market. And Donald Trump and what America was and what it was before he started making a foray into the Manhattan a segment to the real estate market there in New York, and skyscrapers are built. And how did he always try to get his projects going? He would go to a neighborhood that wasn't so hot in Manhattan. And there's still some neighborhoods that aren't so hot in Manhattan. And he would go and he would find a building that he could improve, that he could restore, that he could bring back to grandeur, and bring the neighborhoods, the quality of living back up in that little piece of Manhattan. He would go to the city, county, state officials and say, listen, I'm going to do a lot of improving here. Help me out. Let's partner in this. Give me some tax credits. Give me 10, 20-year worth of tax credits in the city when I do this project. And it was always he comes from the corporate world that knows how to negotiate with the municipal or governmental world to get great things done together. He's not a solo act. He knows how to coordinate and collaborate with all of the different parts that are needed to make something incredible. When he looked back through, if he looked west and south through his, apartment, I'm sure, out his window, he would see the country in struggle. He would see it in erosion, and he fought to be in position to make some great changes for the country he loves so much. Then he had to fight like hell to get back there. And so what I see in this election is literally like Braveheart. Sylvester Stallone introduced him recently as George Washington's second coming. The difference there and the commonality with Braveheart is Washington was fighting a visiting army. He was here in the United States of America, the colonies, and he was fighting an army and navy visiting from another place, England. This time around, Braveheart had to fight the oppressing army already in Scotland, already in the land. He had to try to kick them out. And that's what I see Donald Trump that inspires me as a human being, as someone with a beating heart in my chest that just is impassioned by the fact that he never quit. He never quit coming. He just brought it and brought it and brought it, and spent a lot of his own, health resources and financial resources and relationship resources to get the job done. And he won. And that's inspiring to me.
Yeah, I think his victory is a testimony to his persistence, to his resilience, to his indestructibility. I mean, this is not just a guy who won an election. They tried to bankrupt him in an illicit proceedings. They tried to lock him up when they couldn't identify any crime for which he should be locked up. They tried to keep him off the ballot in all 50 states. Now you add on top of that the constant vilification in the fake mainstream media, and through it all, he never flinched. He never bowed. He never. I'm sure he had his moments. Everybody privately does, but the man is a lion. I mean, I worked for Richard Nixon. He was a tough guy. I worked for Senator Bob Dole. They told Bob Dole that he would never walk again, that he would never have the use of his arms or his hands again. But through just sheer grit, he had an amazing physical comeback after serious injuries in Italy in World War II to become one of the greatest U.S. senators. He was a very tough guy. He would have been a great president. But neither one of those gentlemen, both of it was my pleasure to work for, has the toughness of Donald Trump. Someone once said he has ice water in his veins. Well, when someone's negotiating for the United States, that's exactly, in my opinion, what you want. Hamas has already announced they want to end the hostilities with Israel. The Russians and the Ukrainians have made it clear that they would like to get a settlement to stop the killing. But the New York Times reports today that the Biden administration has yet again, through NATO, told Ukraine that they can use American-supplied NATO long-range missiles to hit targets deep inside Russia. At the same time, Anthony Blinken, our Secretary of State, says that we're going to get every dollar out the door we possibly can to Ukraine before Donald Trump comes in. These people just seem committed to war, endless war. Just the fact that there's no peace talks going on, there are no negotiations going on, tells you their intention. Let's talk about our favorite subject, and that is gold and the role of precious metals in folks protecting their nest egg, protecting their retirement. I do think that people who say, oh, well, now that Donald Trump's going to be president, I don't really need to think about investing, not investing, but taking positions in gold to protect their assets. I think that's a misnomer. The wild spending is going to take time to stop, to slow down. Trump is committed to do that. But we are also this plan that the globalists have to move us to a digital currency. If they can't do it in the next 4 years, doesn't mean they won't try to do it sometime down the road. So I think protecting your retirement with gold or silver is still a good idea. Now, I've written 2 biographies on President Richard Nixon. There are warts in all books. I recognize that all of our presidents have flaws. Richard Nixon's single greatest mistake was closing the gold window, taking us off the gold standard. And he did that at the behest and because he was persuaded by Treasury Secretary John Connally. Connally, who had, of course, been governor of Texas, famously wounded with JFK that fateful day, November 22nd, 1963, later became a Democrat for Nixon, then became a Republican, ran disastrously for president in 1980. So when we come back, I'm going to ask Paul Stone whether he feels as strongly as he did just before the election that folks need to protect their future. Gold has always played that role in American history. So I want you to stand by for that answer. If you're just tuning in, this is the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Network, and we'll be right back with Paul Stone, the CEO of the Colonial Metals Group. They're the only folks I trust when it comes to dealing in precious metals. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back. Coming up shortly, Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee. He has recently involved in the public hearings in the U.S. Congress regarding UFOs. Although we don't call them that anymore. Now we call them unidentified anomalous phenomena, whatever that means. But you're not going to want to miss that. Now we return to Paul Stone of the Colonial Metals Group. Clients choose to work with your company, Paul, because you guys excel at helping people maximize their retirement assets and their savings through the secure and effective planning of purchasing and I would just say diversifying their portfolio with precious metals like gold and silver. So in the wake of this election, are you still as bullish on gold and silver as you were just a few days ago?
Absolutely. And, you know, I'd like to just offer that, let's say truly Donald Trump, President Trump, would be coming to manage the country and did have some secret sauce that no other presidential candidate option contained. Like he had a brilliant secret mathematical recipe in his mind that only he knew how to deploy, that would literally just melt away debt, ramp up revenue, and exterminate the unnecessary and inefficient parts of government with a snap of his fingers. I would be absolutely honest with the people, and I would let them know I was taking my good fortune off into finding a new venture and representing something else. I do enjoy being in the role of solving a problem for people. That's what I love about gold and silver. It solves a problem. But President Trump doesn't have that. No human has. And math doesn't care about your feelings and your thoughts and your beliefs. Math is its own thing, its own language. And the only thing that makes good math is good math. So if you keep chasing bad math with bad math, it just continues to worsen. So there is no human will force that grit that got Donald Trump back to the White House that can bend math. So we have to look at things very clearly. If Kamala had won, you would continue to see absolute disarray, no intended management towards a better situation. You would continue to see the same old continuing on another 4 years, maybe a bit more rabid and causing this erosion that's been happening since the turn of the century, our financial erosion that's been happening since 1997, to worsen faster. And you would have your bust. Eventually, Mother Nature says, you're done. The math is it's over. You're an overcrowded deer population. That's why you're all getting hit by cars running down the road. That's literally what the end result of all of this money printing leads to. It leads to a currency that is dead. You can say whatever you want from the podium. You can think whatever you want. You write whatever you want. Math doesn't care. It's its own language. It doesn't respond to the verbal English, Spanish, German, French, Russian, Chinese, Mandarin language. It doesn't care. It's its own thing. So when we see Donald Trump come to the White House, we now see an intention to manage us to a better result. However, I'm sure everyone in your audience is I'm talking to the crowd that walked uphill to school both directions in the snow and in the rain, right? So we know truth. 10 miles down the wrong road, 10 miles back, just to get to zero. We could also look at it as if, what is the army Donald Trump will be fighting? He'll be fighting 2.3 million workers, employees of the federal government. He'll be fighting a $1.4 trillion sized payroll. Now, just to give you an idea of something nearby that size, Walmart employs 1.6 million people, part-time, full-time, in the United States. They're producing $560 billion in revenue for the year. The U.S. government, with a close-by sized employee force, is ripping through $7 trillion U.S. dollars a year. The government is on the destruction side of the books. Walmart, as an example, as a business, is on the production side, the creation side. So Donald Trump, with his creative mind, has to come and fight an army that destroys. How does he get rid of that? If he does cut, if Elon and Vivek can cut, then the economy is just going out fuel it needs to exist as it did yesterday. So if you were to say cut $2 trillion out of a $7 trillion spend for the year and pretend that $7 trillion in spend allows the economy to live down here at the surface, right? And we get all the oxygen, financial oxygen we need. We have a high rich source of element of oxygen to breathe on, right? And you cut $2 trillion out of that 7, that would be like pushing the economy up to live at an altitude of 16,500 feet. Now, if you're flying, when you're above 10,000 feet, the air gets too thin for us to breathe oxygen, get enough oxygen in to stay awake, right? And higher than that, you actually would start dying. So it's a major stressor. So the point of all this is Donald Trump has the intention to manage us to a better situation, but there will be pain. There's pain either way. You either just allow the bus to blow up someday, maybe 2-3 years from now, if Kamala was still in charge, was going to win the White House, or it's perhaps a gut-wrenching financial pain that can cause the economy. What's lofty about the economy? The real estate world, the financial world. Why? Because of all the printed money, the excess of it ends up there, causing you to think we're financially strong. I hear this news about Trump's dollar. Trump doesn't have a dollar. America has a dollar. The government prints the hell out of that dollar. The Federal Reserve does, causing it to die. But that's what inflates everything. Had any human being be able to stop that money printing because they had some secret recipe to be able to do it, it would already happen, because imagine how great that would have been for re-election. Oh, I killed the debt. We don't owe $35 trillion anymore. We owe 10. The economy is booming. Wages up 300%. That would cause that party to win re-election forever. That's the strongest financial economic news you could ever claim from the podium. Why hasn't anyone been able to stop the money printing? Because the economy is demanding that money or it is dead. That's why. So Trump, Elon Musk, Vivek, all the bright minds, Larry Kudlow, everyone that's involved to try and help make things better, you have to add good math to the bad math, and that's going to be financial pain. You got to look at the instability of our system today. of where your money is located, and this is the clearest point I can make, all of your savings, your salaries, whatever you've got, however you think your whatever you're worth, is valued in what? The dollar. The dollar's been under attack for many decades. That attack can't just stop because someone has a magic wand. So it continues. Oh, my God. Well, won't the dollar be worth nothing at some point if we're looking at this math story? Exactly. It's worth 2.7 cents today. It's losing an average of 2 pennies a year, which means next year it's worth somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 penny, 0.7 of a penny. Oh, my God. Well, what happens the year after that? Well, then it's worth 1/10 of a penny. Well, yeah, then eventually a Starbucks is $40. Oh, my God. So the currency can be mutilated and then eventually be worthless. Wouldn't you rather have your dollar-based savings in gold and silver or something outside of the dollar as this bus nears the cliff's edge and eventually goes off the cliff? Mathematically speaking, that's what happened to Rome, Spain, Portugal, the Dutch, French, and the British, the reserve currency countries before us. So it is imperative for people to understand, catch your breath now. You're not under assault with men on women's sports teams. You're not going to see financing for people to change their sex at 10 years old. All of that's going to stop. The border's going to get locked down. Catch your breath, but understand succinctly that this math problem only worsens unless someone manages it to a better situation. And either way, there's a ton of pain.
All right, we have to leave.
Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back. Coming up shortly, William J. Pulte of the Pulte home building dynasty, entrepreneur, businessman, philanthropist, and strong and early supporter of President Donald Trump. It is speculated that he is potentially a candidate for the Secretary of Housing position, and he will join us in just a little bit. But joining us now is Congressman Tim Burchett of the 2nd District of Tennessee. Now, Congressman Burchett is a tireless advocate for the people in his district, truly a conservative warrior who, during his time in Washington, he was elected to Congress in 2019, has fought hard to secure our border, to fight violent crime, grow the economy. He has been an outspoken champion for small business, but also a strong supporter of our military veterans, and, of course, a tireless supporter of our Second Amendment rights. I took that all from a posting on Truth Social by his good friend, President Donald Trump, who warmly endorsed Congressman Burchett. Prior to his election to Congress, 2019, he was the mayor of Knox County, where, as mayor, he was able to build new schools, launch vital infrastructure projects, and pay down the county's debt, all without raising taxes. We're proud to have him here on the Roger Stone Show. Congressman, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. The honor is all mine. I wish my folks were alive to hear this today. They're big fans of yours, and they would have thought this was pretty cool indeed. So thank you so much.
Well, you know, Congress, as you know, traditionally new members are supposed to be seen and not heard, but you're not like that. During the 117th Congress, you sponsored 23 bills, co-sponsored another 201 bills, but some of the things you've done here that I'm most impressed with, the PAWS Act, or Puppies Assisting Wounded Service Members. This is a bill that became law that requires the Veterans Administration to implement a 5-year pilot program to provide canine training to eligible veterans who were diagnosed with PTSD. PTSD is something, unfortunately, my wife and I know a little bit about, but tell us, if you would, just for a moment, about this legislation.
Well, I guess it all came to pass. I was in the state legislature, and there was a fight between, I think it was the Seeing Eye Dogs, which are great folks, and these others. And we were just trying to get them into restaurants so that they could, folks could assimilate. And, my father fought in the Pacific in the Second World War. He was a 1st Marine Division on Peleliu and Okinawa. His colonel was a man named Chesty Puller. But my daddy didn't come home with any visible scars, but I know that things inside his head bothered him some. We always just knew never to wake Daddy up by his over the top of him, but by his big toe, because, he might wake up on one of those islands. And Daddy was a successful dean at the University of Tennessee and was just the best dad I could ever have. But I know that those things would stick in a young man's mind that they saw in the Pacific. So I just want the VA and those folks to look after the least amongst us, these veterans that come home, maybe internal wounds, not external wounds. And these dogs provide such a calming effect for them. And it's miraculous, really. We're dog people at my house. I've got 3. They're all rescues like me. And they are they provide a calming effect on me when I come home from Washington, but it is nothing like what our veterans endured. So this was just my little shot at hoping to help those folks out a little bit.
Look, I think it is a vitally important piece of legislation. My wife and I have had 9 Yorkshire Terriers, plus a rescue dog with 3 legs named Oscar, who was a Wheaton Terrier. So we're animal lovers, and my hat's off to you, because here you are supplying veterans potentially with canine assistance. I think it's a great accomplishment on your part. I do want to ask you about this because I saw it on your X profile. We used to call them UFOs, unidentified flying objects. The government for many, many, many years denied that there was such things. More recently, they've actually had hearings to talk about this, although now we call them unidentified anomalous phenomena, which is that's a mouthful. What do you think's really going on here, Congressman?
Well, and please call me Tim, sir, if that'd be okay.
Sure.
It's just a big cover-up. We're spending tens of millions of dollars on research of these things. They tell us that we're not studying, yet a guy named Lou Elizondo comes forward and says, in fact, he headed up the department at the Pentagon, and he literally had his pay stubs to prove it. And then they tell us they don't have footage, and then this thing leaks out on YouTube. It's called the Tic Tac videos. And if you'll Google them sometime, you can watch literally our aircraft are chasing these things, and they're doing miraculous things that a human body couldn't withstand. And then I have people come forward to me that are we had the testimony last week in our committee. The admiral came forward, and he was involved in a deal where they said the pilots were out and these craft were coming within very close distance of them, and yet they were emailing between the other ships, wondering what the heck is going on. Well, they never could get any understanding from the military intelligence, which I think is sort of like congressional ethics. They really just don't exist, in my opinion. And then the next day, lo and behold, all their emails were erased. And they're covering this subject. So here we are again, another instance. We go in, Matt Gaetz, myself, and Representative Luna, we all went down to Eglin and were told we were going to get to interview some pilots that had sightings. And they were, not unsurprisingly, the pilots were not made available to us. And then Matt got on the phone to the Pentagon and some people. And then about an hour later, we were afforded that opportunity to interview those three men. But it's just been a cover up from day one. Again, I don't think my big push on it is not little green men or flying saucers. It's just what the heck are we spending tens of millions of dollars on? And, I sit I get briefed by some young kid with a man bun who's very arrogant, who has probably a six-figure, job. And he's telling us they don't exist. And then we ask him about certain incidents that happened, and his response is, well, I don't have the data points on that, whatever the heck that's supposed to mean. So I just think in the vastness of God's great universe, we're probably not the best that he could do. I think there's other things out there. I think our government knows of these things, and they've been covering up at least since 1947 and probably before then.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Congressman Tim Burchett in the 2nd District of Tennessee, a tireless advocate for the U.S. taxpayers. We got a lot more to talk to him about, including getting his opinion on President Trump's initial appointments to his cabinet, among them a number of his colleagues with whom he has worked closely. So whatever you do, folks, don't touch that dial, because we'll be right back.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
This episode is brought to you by Principles. Are there limits to the U.S. government's debt growth? What will happen if the debts are not curtailed? What should policymakers or investors do? Those are urgent questions that legendary investor and New York Times bestselling author Ray Dalio addresses in his new book, How Countries Go Broke: The Big Cycle. The book comes out in June and is available for pre-order today, wherever books are sold.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. Now, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back. We're talking to Congressman Tim Burchett. We're new friends, introduced by a great mutual friend, Brandon Howes. Tim, I apologize if I have mangled your name, but you are still a tireless fighter for the American people. You serve on the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, where you're working to ensure the efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability of our federal government. You're also on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, which makes me feel good because, well, I think you're very realistic about the dangers and the plans of the Chinese Communist Party, as well as the rogue Iranian regime. It makes me sleep better at night knowing that you're there and that you are one of those guys who doesn't have Potomac fever. So we're honored to have you today. A number of your colleagues, folks you've worked with, Mike Waltz from Florida, the appointee by President Trump as National Security Advisor, our own Elise Stefanik from upstate New York as the UN ambassador, kind of a surprise appointment, a firebrand, Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. How are you feeling about the president's appointments so far, Tim?
Well, I love them, Mr. Stone. I'm fired up about it. Elise, I think, will do an excellent job. She's a mama, and I told her the other day, I said, the best thing I like about this is you're going to be close to home because she's got that baby boy. I guess he's not a baby anymore. He's about 3, I guess. But and Waltz, he's a freaking war hero, no question. He doesn't talk about it a lot. He's the real deal, and I think he'll do excellent. And of course, Matt Gaetz. I'm as close to Matt. My wife texted me and said that when he got appointed, she says, "Oh no, honey, you've lost your only friend in Congress." I said, "Well, honey, I don't know about that, but I always remember Matt I said, one time something was going on about him, and I said, Matt, sit with me back here, buddy. And then the press asked me what I'd said to him, and I said, well, we just talked about his problems, and I talked to him about Jesus. And then the next day, made national news, of course. And then the next day, Gates, he comes up to me and says, Burchett, man, you can't tell people that. And I said, I said, but Matt, we were talking about Jesus. And he goes, no, not about Jesus, about me having trouble. Never tell the press I'm in trouble. And I've always thought that was the funniest interaction. But, Matt is the one guy who takes it to the Washington sewer. It's really not a swamp. A swamp is a cool ecosystem. Washington, D.C. is a sewer. And, if the Biden Justice Department hates Matt Gaetz's guts because he goes after him tooth and nail, if they had anything on him, they wouldn't have thrown that case out. So I love Matt. I'm sorry that he's being thrown in the middle of all this. Him and Ginger are dear friends of mine. And they've been great friends to me. So I'm very confident in the president's decisions of the people he's made. I just tweeted on my X account at Tim Burchett. I said that RFK, the people that are saying RFK don't know anything about science are the same ones telling you that men can have babies. So I feel pretty confident about all the president's people.
I agree with all of your sentiments there. I think it was Harry Truman who said, if you're in politics and you're looking for a friend, you better get yourself a dog. I think that
Get a dog.
Pretty solid advice. The other thing he said, I think it was Truman who said that show me a politician, show me a guy who got rich in politics, and I'll show you a crook. And therefore, it leads me to this question. Nancy Pelosi, who's just announced that she's going to run yet again, even though she's no longer the de facto leader of the Democrats. I think she's the reality. She's still the leader. She has made tens of millions of dollars in her shrewd stock trades, she and her husband. This is really troubling to me. Do you think members of Congress should be allowed to use what is clearly insider information to line their own pockets with these stock trades?
Absolutely not. And thank you for bringing that up. I've actually filed legislation to do that. It used to be about a $8,000 portfolio. I think it's about a $9,000 portfolio. Is managed by my buddy Tommy Seiler in Knoxville, and everything should be in a mutual fund. And dadgummit, they say it's a blind trust. Those blind trusts have 20/20 vision, and they can see perfectly well. And you're exactly right. One day, 2 weeks ago, she made $1 million in the stock market. Now, you and I don't have that kind of access. Well, I guess I do have access to it, but I don't use it. And to me, that is just it's wrong as it can be, and we need to punish those that do those kind of things, because you'd go to jail if you pulled those kind of stunts. But because we're in Congress, it's still insider trading. They can call it whatever they want, but there's some that even do better than Speaker Pelosi does, and she still is the speaker. Let's be honest. If you watch on the House floor, they still gather around her to touch the hem of her cloth, I guess, to get healed. But she's still in charge, and that is just wrong as it can be.
Yeah, it sure appears that way to me. Look, we now know, based on John Durham's report, that the Russian collusion hoax was the single greatest abuse of power in American history, in which the full authority of the U.S. government and the extraordinary capability of our intelligence agencies was used to utilize what they knew was fabricated evidence to try to remove a duly elected president. And we know who was involved. Barack Obama may have presidential immunity, but Vice President Joe Biden doesn't, and Susan Rice, the National Security Advisor, doesn't, and FBI Director Comey, who was involved, he doesn't, and the worst of them all, John Brennan, the CIA Director. I don't know what the sentiment is among House Republicans, but there were laws broken. I think the law against treason specifically, on which there is no statute of limitation. Simple final question, Tim. Are the American people going to see justice in this matter? Because they tried to ruin Donald Trump's life. They tried to ruin my life. They tried to ruin General Flynn's life. All we're asking for is not retribution, not revenge. Just what we're asking for is justice.
Absolutely. I will push that to the hilt. But what we got to worry about is some gutless Republicans. And it's not the Democrats. We know where they'll land. We got to put the pressure on the.
And Tim Burchett joining us from Tennessee. God bless you and thanks for joining us in the Roger Stone Show.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and this is the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Network. If you haven't done it already, now would be an excellent time to go to the App Store and download the Red Apple Audio Network app so you don't miss any of the amazing programming we have here at Red Apple. Shocking news in the Washington Times. This was just this past week. We now know that there was, even before Crossfire Hurricane, an alleged off-the-books investigation that predated the FBI's Russian collusion probe. We actually found out that the House Judiciary Committee, right now under Speaker Johnson, is examining the claims of a whistleblower that says that the FBI targeted Donald Trump soon after he announced his presidential campaign in June of 2015. This off-the-books operation was ordered by FBI Director James Comey, and this, as I say, predated the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane operation. Now, we knew and learned recently that CIA Director John Brennan had ordered an investigation, or I should say had asked for an investigation by the Five Eyes nations. Those are the other English-speaking countries, those being Canada, the UK, New Zealand, and Australia. They gave them a list of Trump associates and supporters that included yours truly, as well as George Papadopoulos, who was then working as a volunteer policy advisor, foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign. Now, this makes Watergate look like small potatoes. This whistleblower's disclosure actually says that 2 female FBI undercover agents infiltrated the Trump campaign at the highest levels and were directed to act as a honeypot while traveling with candidate Trump and his campaign staff on the campaign trail. This is really shocking. If anybody doesn't know what a honeypot is, that is, in this case, an attractive female undercover agent whose assignment is to seduce those working on the campaign in an effort to get information. It is amazing that this whistleblower says that this early off-the-books probe was a criminal investigation specifically targeting Donald Trump and his campaign staff. The whistleblower has testified behind closed doors that Director Comey ordered the FBI investigation against Trump and that Comey personally directed the investigation, according to the disclosure. This off-the-books investigation did not appear to target a specific crime, but was more of a fishing expedition to try to find something, actually anything, incriminating regarding candidate Trump. Interesting enough, the Washington Times reached out to the FBI and Director Comey for comment, but no comment was forthcoming. Incredibly, this effort to infiltrate Donald Trump's presidential campaign, which I say again makes Watergate look like small potatoes, was hidden from the Justice Department's Inspector General Michael Horowitz, who investigated misconduct of the FBI Bureau during the Trump campaign. Therefore, it is not addressed in the Inspector General's final report. This is only one of the missing issues in that final report. As someone who was terrorized by the criminalized justice system, this really comes to my attention as shocking. Former FBI Assistant Director Chris Swecker said, quoted again in the Washington Times, that this was a booming, egregious violation of the rules governing the Attorney General and the FBI. This, I think, is why you see such panic in the New York Times today and in the media generally about the appointment of Congressman Matt Gaetz of North Florida as the incoming Attorney General. It's interesting that Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer, who before the election wanted to do away with the filibuster, now is asking Republicans for greater bipartisanship. All of a sudden, he's against doing away with the filibuster. The question, of course, is whether President Trump is going to be able to get confirmation of these outstanding nominees. Every one of them are people of integrity. And I had a good friend call me this morning to ask me whether I thought that the way to get confirmation was to essentially say, well, the president's nominees, maybe they don't have as much experience as they should have for the position to which they've been nominated, but we assure you that they're going to choose assistant secretaries and deputy secretaries or assistant directors or deputy directors who have more experience. No, wrong. You see, that's exactly how it works with these outside the political system presidents like Jimmy Carter, whose presidency was essentially swallowed up by Brzezinski and other Washington insiders like Stuart Eizenstat. Carter, who I think was a good man and a fine Christian, even though he wasn't a very good president, he was an outsider, and the establishment swallowed up and destroyed his presidency. They tried to do this with Ronald Reagan. Didn't work there either, although the TEFRA, the decision to raise taxes, was listed in President Ronald Reagan's own biography as his single greatest mistake, again sold to him by the Washington insiders like Jim Baker and others who came from the Bush camp. This is what happens when you don't people your administration with folks who support your agenda. We saw this under Donald Trump in the appointment of General John Kelly, who became the White House Chief of Staff. Now, Kelly, you may remember, is the guy who said that in visiting a military cemetery where veterans were buried, that the president referred to military veterans who had given their life in the service of their country as suckers and losers. There's only one problem. There were 20 other people there, and not a single one of them recalls the president saying anything of the kind. So General Kelly's claim is uncorroborated. General Kelly has a motive in saying this about the man who cashiered him, who fired him for both incompetence and insubordination. And then just weeks before the election, the same General John Kelly suddenly remembered that Donald Trump had praised Adolf Hitler. Once again, no corroboration. No other figure in government remembers the president saying anything of the kind. That's because he never said it. And if he did say it, why did it take General John Kelly 5 years to remember this? And why didn't he resign from his position in the government at the time it happened? That's because it never happened. This is precisely the kind of quizzling you don't want in your administration. That's why you see the hysterics going on at MSNBC and CNN. Now, folks, I don't get my news from CNN for the same reason I don't eat out of the toilet. But they are hysterical that now, finally, Donald Trump is going to put in place what we're calling the Liberty League, an all-star team of people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, former Congressman Mike Waltz is the National Security Advisor, Pete Hegseth over at Defense, Tom Homan, he's a tough-talking guy who is committed to deporting those illegals who are in the country and have criminal records first. Yes, folks, President Dwight Eisenhower did it. He deported 1.3 million illegals. It can be done. It will be done. This is going to be a golden age for America, a time of unprecedented peace and prosperity and opportunity and justice. I was with the president this past Saturday night. I've never seen him happier. I've never seen him more confident. I've never seen him more determined. We're going to talk about it more when we come back. If you're just tuning in, this is Roger Stone, the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Network. So whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Roger Stone Show. Now we are joined by Bill Pulte. Bill Pulte is an entrepreneur. He's a former director of Pulte Homes and a CEO today of Pulte Capital Partners, a private equity firm. It has been reported in the press that Bill Pulte is one of those under consideration to be the U.S. Secretary of Housing. He comes from a family with a proud tradition of home building, but he's also a philanthropist who you might know him from X, now known as Twitter, where he gives away thousands of dollars to people who really, really need it. He only has a little bit of time because he's up at Mar-a-Lago for some meetings, but we're joined now by Bill Pulte, calling in from the president's palatial home there in Palm Beach.
Roger, good to talk to you.
Bill, I know you're pressed for time, and I appreciate your joining us. You're an idea guy. You think outside the box. you've thought a lot about a problem that Robert F. Kennedy identified in his presidential campaign and still talks about today, and that is the lack of affordable housing in America. Whether you want to buy a home, whether you want to rent someplace to live, there is no housing available. And when there is, you can't afford it. Donald Trump is a builder. You're a builder. How can the president solve this problem?
We've got to get supply up. We got to get supply. The only way to fix this is you can't increase demand more. You have to increase supply. And you're going to continue to see prices go up and up and up if you don't fix the supply problem. So one of the things I think President Trump will do as a builder is build, build, build. He won't just drill, drill, drill. He'll build, build, build. And I think he's going to get it done. And I think you're going to see home prices come down and people will be able to finally afford the American dream again. The American dream in terms of buying homes has been put on hold, Roger, because these prices are way too high. People can't afford them. They need to come down, and I believe they will in the next 4 years.
The president has talked about Trump cities. I think this is really an interesting idea. Tell us, if you can, how you see this and what's the president getting at?
Well, the president talks about this plan that he wants to have 10 new cities, and he wants to use some of the federal land. You know, there's millions and millions of acres of vacant land and usable land, frankly, beautiful land that the federal government owns that's just not being used right now. And this represents a huge opportunity. Obviously, you have to find land that has infrastructure, or at least economically you can afford to put infrastructure in. But this country is blessed with some great real estate. And, you know, we basically need to really get going, because if we keep waiting any longer with what's been done in the last 4 years, we're going to be in trouble. And so I'm very optimistic that whether it's the Trump cities or just housing supply in general, we will get this solved.
All right. I appreciate your calling in. I know that you're involved in meetings there, and I appreciate you giving us your valuable time. Where can folks follow you on social media?
At Pulte on Twitter, at Pulte. Thanks for having me, Roger. Always good talking to you.
All right. God bless you. That was Bill Pulte, a dynamo, one of the most inspiring young entrepreneurs I've ever met, supporter of President Donald Trump. I think he would make an excellent Secretary of Housing. The department is actually called the Department of Housing and Urban Development, but I think we should change the name and focus on the gigantic problem of affordable housing. The other thing I must say that I'm really delighted about is the decision by President Donald Trump to appoint Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the Secretary of Human Services. Health and Human Services, pardon me. This is absolutely vital. This new political coalition, this new ruling coalition, this has only happened twice before in our history. In 1932, because prior to 1932, most African Americans voted Republican because of the role of the Republican Party in emancipating the slaves. But in 1932, because of Herbert Hoover's anemic response to the Great Depression, well, black voters became Democrats, and they remained Democrats largely until our most recent election, when Donald Trump made historic inroads into this traditionally Democrat constituency. We saw the same thing among Hispanic Americans, among younger Americans. We've seen a great realignment going on. An important part of this realignment is Robert Kennedy's personal mission to restore America to good health. One of the things that impresses me the most about RFK, and I've watched him very carefully, not on the networks because they won't interview him. Not on the big cable outlets. They'll interview him, but then they edit and censor his interviews. But on the thousands of freewheeling podcasts that he's done, I have never seen Robert Kennedy ever question about any assertion he made without him being able to cite multiple studies or sources on which he bases his opinion. This is driving Big Pharma crazy. I have no doubt that they will do everything humanly possible to try to prevent his confirmation, but RFK is a fighter just like Donald Trump, and this partnership is incredibly vital to this country. Look, they can have Dick Cheney. They can have his perjuring daughter, Liz Cheney. In the January 6th committee hearings, she perjured herself about me and General Flynn. She claimed that White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows was instructed by President Trump to call General Flynn and I on January 5th to find out what was going to happen on January 6th. That is categorically false. It is a lie. Phone records would prove otherwise if it were true, but I have said and would continue to say there never was any such phone call. We now know that Liz Cheney also was coaching witnesses before the committee behind the backs of their lawyers. I saw Speaker Johnson at Mar-a-Lago just last night. He has a very tough job, folks, because he's got a majority caucus, but half those people are go-along to get along rhinos, we call them, Republicans in name only. They just want to get reelected. They don't want to rock the boat. And then he has firebrands like Tim Burchett and Matt Gaetz and Anna Paulina Luna and so many others who went there not to be someone, but to do something, which is to say, to make America great again. And that's why I'm so excited about this realignment, where common sense Democrats like RFK, like Tulsi Gabbard, like Governor Rod Blagojevich, all of whom have endorsed and campaigned hard for President Donald Trump, are forming a new consensus in America. The division, folks, in America is not between Republicans and Democrats. It is between a ruling elite who no one elected, globalist bureaucrats who want to tell you how to live and who want to censor your free speech and want to move this nation towards World War III. And then all good people, Republicans, Democrats, independents, free thinkers, libertarians, those who believe in common sense. So RFK being appointed to this cabinet to tackle the problem of child obesity, to tackle the problem of child chronic disease, to question what those who are selling us food are putting into our food that is literally poisoning us. This is a great and courageous appointment by President Donald Trump, and we're going to forge a new golden age in this country, a golden age of peace, prosperity, security, and justice. I'm Roger Stone, and thank you for joining us on The Roger Stone Show.
Crazy about a shark, man.
Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome, I'm Roger Stone, and this is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. The most powerful, entertaining, and influential AM radio station in the United States of America. If you live in the greater New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area where I grew up, you can find us at 770 on the AM dial. But if you're out of town, well, you can listen to us at WABCradio.com. We're live streaming, I think, in 163 countries around the globe. And, every Sunday we talk politics, style, history, food, and with my associate Jonas Jackson on the board, we really know how to rock. If you love politics, you're in the right place. If you love food, well, you're really in the right place. A shout out to my friends at Cafe Palermo, one of our advertisers here, and Baby John. You can find them right there at 148 Mulberry Street, the best Italian cuisine in town. And, of course, Baby John DeLutro, he's the king of cannoli. You want to go by there? We appreciate their being one of our sponsors here on the Roger Stone Show. I don't know if you missed it the other night. I called in right here to 77 WABC to Dominic Carter's After Midnight show. We had a great time. You can find it on the WABC radio app. You want to go right now, by the way, to the App Store and get that. That way you can't miss any of the great programming we have here, whether it is Larry Kudlow, the man who quarterbacked America's economic revival under Donald Trump in his first term. And, well, we're glad to know that Larry's in the president's ear now in his next term as president. Or my good friend Curtis Sliwa. He refers to me as the man who knows where the bodies are buried. It is amazing to be with you. I have to tell you, I really enjoyed watching Donald Trump, Robert F. Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, and Elon Musk yesterday at the UFC fight right there in Madison Square Garden. John Jones defended his UFC heavyweight title with a stunning victory on Saturday before pledging to continue his extraordinary successful MMA career. But the most amazing thing was when John Jones did the Trump dance, said he was proud to be American and even prouder to be a Christian, and then he handed his championship belt to President Donald Trump. What an incredible moment in history. I've never seen the president with a broader grin or any happier than he was in that moment. If you haven't seen it online, folks, you do need to see it. It is extraordinary, however, that the Democrats are up to their old tricks. Adam Schiff, now, unfortunately, the senator-elect from California, going on CNN and insisting, yet again, falsely, that there was indeed evidence of collusion between Russia and Donald Trump's campaign. Let's listen to it.
Obviously, he is bringing a group of people to disrupt. I mean, that is what Speaker Johnson said. And I'm wondering about how much anybody in Washington is being introspective at all about why there is this kind of opening for disruptors, if not necessarily these individuals. You were censured in the House last year for, in their view, holding positions of power during the Trump presidency as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and according to them, quote, abusing this trust by saying there was evidence of collusion between Trump's campaign and Russia. And I wonder if you are feeling at all introspective at all about that was, according to the Mueller report and according to your Republican colleagues, an overstatement. And I wonder if you think in any way you help set the table for these disruptors.
You know, first of all, it wasn't an overstatement. There is evidence of collusion. The Trump campaign manager was meeting with Russian intelligence and giving them internal polling data, just to give you one example. And the Mueller report sets all this out.
It does say, quote, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities, which doesn't mean that he didn't, that there weren't meetings, but they didn't find evidence.
Mueller says that too. He says the fact that we didn't find proof beyond a reasonable doubt doesn't mean there wasn't evidence of conspiracy or coordination. So, but look, that's not what people were voting on. People were voting on, is this guy going to improve the economy? Is he going to address inflation? And we didn't persuade the American people that we had a better answer to that question, that we had a better program, agenda, plan. And more than that, I think we failed to persuade the American people that in the voters' point of view, hey, that party, that candidate understands people like me.
Adam Schiff is a bald-faced liar. Let's take this piece by piece. First of all, he claims that members of the Trump campaign were meeting with Russian intelligence assets. He's referring to and sharing polling. He's claiming that campaign manager Paul Manafort passed polling information to a man named Konstantin Kilimnik, who Adam Schiff falsely claims is a Russian intelligence asset. couple problems with this. First of all, the Trump campaign had no proprietary polling information during that time. So any polling information Manafort may have given to Kilimnik was public information that he could have seen in the newspaper. Secondarily, the independent journalist Matt Taibbi has firmly established that Konstantin Kilimnik was not a Russian intelligence asset. He was a U.S. intelligence asset. Gotcha, Congressman Schiff. You're lying. Secondarily, you claim, not in this interview, but previously, that Roger Stone was in touch with Guccifer 2.0, who you claim was a Russian intelligence asset who hacked the Democrat National Committee. Well, first of all, that exchange on Twitter direct messages took place 3 weeks after WikiLeaks had already published the allegedly hacked information from the Democrat National Committee and Hillary Clinton's campaign. I published all 28 words. It is innocuous. It proves nothing, but it also, you can't conspire with someone ex post facto. I would have to have had a time machine to have conspired with them, and Guccifer 2.0 is far more likely a government cutout. John Brennan, I think, created Guccifer 2.0. As far as the Russians hacking the DNC, well, the judge refused to give me the report by CrowdStrikes, but the FBI did admit in their depositions prior to my trial that they never inspected the computer servers at the DNC. They hired CrowdStrikes to do it, but the judge wouldn't allow my attorneys to have that report. Now we know why. It's been declassified. The CrowdStrikes report, this third-party Democrat-leaning IT firm, admitted before the House Intelligence Committee that they had found no evidence whatsoever of a Russian hack. Now, I could have proven at trial by producing expert witnesses and forensic evidence that there never was any online hack of the DNC. And to the extent that DNC or Clinton campaign documents were obtained by WikiLeaks, the download times prove that those documents were downloaded to some kind of portable drive and taken out the back door. But of course, the judge would not allow us to say that at trial. Wasn't until November 3rd, 2020. That's Election Day, the busiest media day of the year. At midnight, the U.S. Department of Justice, only because of a court order by a federal judge, released Robert Mueller's long-hidden, long-redacted final report in which Mueller could not sugarcoat the fact that in the case of Roger Stone, he had found no Russian collusion, no collaboration with WikiLeaks, or any other crime. In fact, Mueller went on to say that although he had found no such evidence, even if he had found such evidence, he had concluded that under my First Amendment rights, it would not have been a crime. So those who are celebrating right now over this smashing victory should not lull themselves to sleep. The leftist progressive Democrats, those who have ousted the common sense Democrats who believed in John Kennedy and Harry Truman, well, the Democrat Party now follows Marx and Lenin. They have not given up. Their collusion with the fake news media continues. There have already been 2 attempts on President Donald Trump's life. Every single day on my daily show and every weekend here at 77 WABC, I call on people to pray with me for the safety of our president and his family. I think it is an act of God that he moved his head at exactly the right time in Butler, Pennsylvania, and I believe that saved his life and that he has been spared for some greater purpose. But if we think that these folks will give up in their efforts to stop the change that is clearly coming, particularly those who engaged in treasonous activity. And treason, by the way, I'm not a lawyer, but it's a crime for which there is no statute of limitations. In other words, if someone is charged by a grand jury and convicted in a court of law of treason, there is no time limit under which that charge can be brought. And I think if you examine the actions of John Brennan, James Comey, Susan Rice, I think a case could be made. So these folks hope to escape justice. They really do. And that is why they are so frantic, so apoplectic about the change that Donald Trump is going to bring to Washington. It is amazing to me that President Donald Trump has pulled out the hat trick. The last president of the United States to pull this off was a New Yorker, Grover Cleveland. He was a conservative Democrat. He was elected president. Then he failed to win re-election in a disputed election in which his supporters claimed it was stolen from him, only to return to the White House 4 years later. It is the greatest comeback in American political history. It's not just a political comeback because Donald Trump didn't just win an election. They pulled out the stops. They tried to impoverish him. They tried to bankrupt him with an absurd case in which there is no victim, where Donald Trump borrowed monies from banks and then paid it back with interest. Where's the crime? There is no crime. So then, of course, they tried to keep him off the ballot in all 50 states. Thank God the U.S. Supreme Court stopped that. Now they're trying to lock him up in a case brought by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, when Alvin Bragg can't even define the crime. Watching President Trump in Madison Square Garden, I couldn't help to notice who should pop up but New York Mayor Eric Adams. I think he kind of got the cold shoulder from the president. He looks to me like a man looking for a pardon because he's been charged in a serious crime. No, he didn't just get an upgrade from coach to first class or an extra Bloody Mary, folks. He is charged with taking $100,000 in money from Turkey, which is illegal, then giving it to straw donors who submitted it in the New York City Campaign Finance Matching Fund program, turning it into almost $800,000+. That is a serious crime. Yes, I have to say it, in our system, one is innocent until proven guilty. But I'd also remind you that the depositions in the Sal Greco's legal case against the NYPD and those who fired him simply because he was a friend of mine, those depositions will finally take place next week. So those who are out there saying, well, Eric Adams has been victimized because he was a critic of the open borders policy of Joe Biden, that is simply not true. Eric Adams campaigned as a proponent for New York City being a sanctuary city. His only complaint with Joe Biden was that they didn't give him the money to fix the problem they had created with this influx, this invasion of illegals into New York City. I'm Roger Stone. This is the Roger Stone Show. Don't go away because we'll be right back. We're going to talk about who might fill the seat of Elise Stefanik, the valiant upstate New York congresswoman who President Donald Trump has now appointed to the UN. Don't go away, folks. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. This is Roger Stone, and this is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. We are the crown jewel of AM radio. If you haven't downloaded the 77 WABC app on your cell phone, do it now, because you don't want to miss any of the amazing and entertaining program we have right here on the single most influential, powerful AM radio station in America today. Joining us now is an entrepreneur and businessman, Anthony Constantino, who is the head of StickerMule.com. Now, Anthony became a public figure when he decided, after reviving an industry in his hometown of Amsterdam, New York, to erect the largest Vote for Trump sign in the United States on the top of his factory there in Amsterdam. The problem with this is that the local Democrat mayor didn't like his sign and threatened to throw Anthony in jail if he wouldn't take it down. Anthony, however, who's a man of principle and a supporter of President Donald Trump, refused. The matter was resolved, and the sign stayed up. Now, he lives in the congressional district of Elise Stefanik, who is a feisty, tough New Yorker who has really served her country and her state well. It takes a lot of courage, folks, to file a complaint against a sitting judge, but she did that in a number of these cases where there was, I think, judicial misconduct. And I am really happy with the decision by President Donald Trump to appoint Elise Stefanik to the United Nations, where I know she will do a great, great job. Anthony Constantino told me about 10 days ago, right after the announcement, that he is seriously considering seeking that seat in Congress. And I told him I thought that was an intriguing idea. He's not a candidate today. I don't think he's made a final decision to run, although he told me he was 99% likely to make the race. He is actually on the ground where he attended the fight in Dallas, I guess it was, in Texas, where you saw the face-off between Iron Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, and he joins us now. Anthony, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thanks, Roger. Great to be here. And shortly I'll be heading back, hopping on a plane to fly back to my district to start meeting the county chairman. I got a few meetings set up. They seem excited to talk to me, and I'm excited to talk to them and get their feedback and input on my potential candidacy.
Well, I think this is a big jump for you. You don't come from the world of politics. You come from the world of business. By the way, if you haven't called Chairman Ed Cox of the New York Republican Committee, he's a great guy. He's a longtime friend of mine, and he always has the interests of the state, the country, and his party at heart. You ought to give Ed a call. I think this is an intriguing idea. Now, you put something up on Twitter just minutes ago. Let me see if I can find this. You basically said that when others were bailing out on Tesla, you invested heavily, that you've made $2.6 million on your investment in Tesla, and that you intend to deposit that in an account and use it, every penny of it, if necessary, in your campaign for Congress if you decide to run. That's a pretty big bet, Anthony. Tell us about it.
Well, my investment in Tesla paid off very quickly. I make very few investments in life. I bet Tesla, Google, Apple, they all paid. And I bet a company called Sticker Mill that I own completely outright, and it's 1,200 employees, and that paid really well, too. I bet on President Trump in 2016, 5,000 to win. That paid 10 to 1, and I bet my reputation on him winning in 2024, and that worked out beautifully. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. People are asking me why I want to do it. I think the biggest reason I want to do it is I didn't expect to be here. I haven't had any political ambitions until really recently when my phone started ringing off the hook with people asking me to get involved. And I've operated my whole life trying to do whatever is the most impactful thing I can do with my time and my skill set. I spent a long time building a great company with my skill set, but this seems like maybe the best use of my time and my skills at this point. And I want the best person to have the job and be in Congress. We want the best possible people in Congress. This administration and the next 4 years of America are a really exciting time. There's an incredible amount of talent that's going to be in Washington, talent like we've never seen before. And I happen to think I'm probably the most talented person that's available for this role. So with that in mind, I'm very interested in seeking it. And the other great thing about me, as you mentioned, due to the tremendous work of Elon Musk, in a way, he'll be indirectly funding my campaign. I'll be fully funding the campaign by myself. I just told somebody, I think I'll be the first candidate in history in the event that I run to not have a donation button on his website. I don't want donations. I want to fully fund it, to be free, to work on the interest of the people and do the right thing for the country.
Now, you're a freewheeling guy. I saw you, I don't know, what was it, a week ago? We went to Mar-a-Lago for dinner. You briefly saw the president there and thought it was kind of funny when they told you had to take your MAGA hat off in the club. You're more comfortable in a T-shirt and jeans than you are in a suit and tie, but I do know you will sartorially rise to the occasion should you decide to run. Now, folks, the way this works is it's a special election. That means that at the juncture that Elise Stefanik is formally announced or probably nominated for the UN position, and she resigns her seat in the House. Governor Hochul will then declare a special election, usually within 90 days. Now, there is no Republican or Democrat primary. The Republican county chairs, on a proportional basis, depending on what portion of the district their county committee constitutes, cast a vote to choose a candidate. New York State is unique in which we have a multi-party system. The Conservative Party also has a role here. They will also nominate a candidate for Congress in this upcoming special election. Since Anthony was a Democrat, tells me he has become a Republican, kind of like Tulsi Gabbard, kind of like Ronald Reagan, kind of like Donald Trump, by the way. The Conservative Party would have to give their permission if Anthony is fortunate enough to win their support. There's a lot of shoe leather involved here, Anthony. You got to go out and meet with all these chairmen in two parties, and you got to convince them that you're the best person for the job. Plus, you got to run a multi-million-dollar business. Tell the folks how old you are again.
42, and I think you'll be really happy to hear this. As soon as I touch down back home, I already got a tailor coming straight to the house to get me some very nice suits. You know I'm not a suit and tie guy, but I know I'm new to this process. I'm an outsider, but I have tremendous respect for people that have been there serving the state and serving the country for a long time. So I'm going to be suiting up. I want to show them respect. I'm going to be very excited to go meet with them and learn from them and get their input and hopefully support. But I think what they'll learn in dealing with me is I'm a fast learner. I'm good at just about everything I do. I had to be good at a lot of things to build my company. I had to learn, I have a massive engineering operation. I built the company from scratch, so I had to learn everything from customer service to engineering to manufacturing to every aspect of the business. And I also learned to be a professional boxer along the way too, and secured 4 straight knockouts in the boxing world. So I'm good at most things I do, just about everything I do. I'm going to work really hard to be good at this. The way I get good at things is I listen to people, I learn from the best, and I work really hard. So I want to be looking to talk to people and learn quickly and do the job very well.
I must say, reading about your company, Sticker Mule, the internet's favorite printing company, is very impressive. You have grown to 1,200 employees in 39 countries, factories in upstate New York, where the high tax policies of several more recent governors have destroyed industry upstate. But you also have a factory in South Carolina, as well as a factory in Italy. I'd like to visit that factory at some point. You were also, as you mentioned, a professional boxer in Mexico. But what I really liked was the fact that you decided to come off the bench and defend free speech in your advocacy for President Donald Trump, and also to speak up about stopping the anti-Trump hate that is so pervasive in society by some today. Tell us, if you will, what do you think the number one issue facing New York State and the country is?
Very simple. It's very simple. I like to solve big problems. You have to identify the problem first. The biggest problem New York State has is we're losing people, and no one will be better than me at bringing people back to New York State. I want to bring energy, excitement, and enthusiasm back to New York State. The big problem we have in New York is people view it as a uniparty state that's not safe for Republicans. When I got involved speaking up on behalf of President Trump, everybody told me, stand down, you're going to put yourself in tremendous jeopardy. But I stood up and I did the right thing, and it's worked out great. No one's going to be better than me at bringing people back to New York State and convincing New Yorkers that we want Democrats and Republicans to be happy in New York alike. We want everyone to get along and be happy and build the state back to greatness together.
Job creation, very clearly, perhaps the greatest single issue in my view. We had a thriving economy at one time, manufacturing economy, upstate. The high tax policies of multiple Democrat governors back to back have destroyed that. Now you add the no bail for violent criminals policies of Governor Hochul and the Democrats. It is not an atmosphere to foster jobs and opportunity. So, look, we need good men and women from outside politics to take the plunge. It's an all-encompassing, it's an all-consuming endeavor, not only running for public office, but also holding public office. And having known you now for a little while, Anthony, I don't think there's any danger, should you decide to run, of your catching Potomac fever. I don't think you're ever going to go to Washington and then, as so many have done, forget why you went there. So I want to thank you for calling in. I know they're holding a jet on the ground for you, but you wanted to be on with us live. I'm glad that you could make the time. Anthony Constantino, the CEO of StickerMule.com, the Internet's #1 printing company, joining us to talk about his prospect of running for the seat of Elise Stefanik. Anthony, fly safe, and thank you for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.
Thank you so much, Roger. Always a pleasure and honor to be here.
All right, there he goes, folks. That was Anthony Constantino, also, by the way, a member of the Italian-American Civil Rights League, where I'm a proud member as well. Coming up on the Roger Stone Show, Pastor Jonathan Shuttlesworth, Pastor the founder of the Revival Today Church, with churches in both Pittsburgh and in Texas. He has traveled across the world. I saw him last week referred to as the Don Rickles of pastors, which I thought was hysterical because Pastor Jonathan Shuttlesworth is a straight shooter who tells you exactly the way it is. He's conducted open-air crusades and outreaches across the world, not just in the country. He was determined to speak out about biblical teachings regarding faith, healing, prosperity, freedom from sin, and how to live a victorious life. He's going to be up next on The Roger Stone Show here at 77 WABC Radio. Once again, you can hear us at WABCRadio.com all the way around the globe, or 77 AM right there on your dial. You're going to want to hear Jonathan Shuttlesworth. He's a great guest. We've had him before. He's become a great friend. So whatever you do, folks, don't touch that dial.
It's The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back on the Roger Stone Show here at 77 WABC Radio, the most powerful, entertaining, and influential AM radio station in America today. You know, folks, 1.3 million New Yorkers are struggling to feed themselves and their families. I hope you will consider partnering with the WABC Foundation, AARP of New York, the Catholic Charities, and the St. Francis Feeding the Hungry Project to help us feed these hungry people. You can help those in need, and with your help, we can help so many more. Last year, working together, these organizations fed over 10,000 families. But this year, we're looking to do far, far more. So go to redapplenetworks.com/turkey, or you can go to, let's see, I want to get this exactly right, WABCRadio.com/turkey to help us feed the hungry this upcoming holiday season. God will bless you for it. Joining me now is one of the most dynamic apostles for Jesus Christ that I have ever met. Evangelist Jonathan Shuttlesworth is the founder and preaches the gospel of Jesus Christ at the Revival Today churches in both Pennsylvania and in Texas. They referred to him recently as the Don Rickles of pastors. I love that because what it means is that he's a straight shooter. He tells it exactly as it is. He's funny. He is provocative. He is, shall we say, he is, what's the word I'm looking for? He's outspoken. I'm proud to call him my friend. Now, in the final weekend before the election, he cordially invited me to come up and speak on his podcast and then attend church with him the next morning. And I really wanted to do it. I already had my tickets bought. I had all my plans made. And frankly, I had just spent myself in these final days of the campaign. And I was just too sick to make the trip. And I felt very badly about it, not because I wanted just to have the opportunity to share the fellowship with Jonathan and Dallas Shuttlesworth, who are great apostles for the Lord, but I just didn't want to disappoint him and the great people at his church. So he's promised to invite me back, and I promised to come when he does. Jonathan Shuttlesworth, thank you so much for joining us on the Roger Stone Show.
Thanks for having me. You sound strong. You're feeling 100%?
Finally, I'm happy to say I picked up a cold in Madison Square Garden in the incredible rally. It's amazing. Democrats said that was a Nazi rally. I saw a lot of people waving the flags of Israel and wearing yarmulkes. I don't think you
didn't see that a lot at Hitler's old rallies.
No, you really didn't. It is such a misnomer. Madison Square Garden, that's where they nominated Bill Clinton for president. That's where they nominated Jimmy Carter for president. That's where President John F. Kennedy had his famous 1960 birthday party where Marilyn Monroe in the see-through dress sang in that breathy voice, "Happy birthday, Mr. President." But all that went out the window, and they tried to say that that rally was anything other than the diverse celebration of America that it was. I've been in politics 45 years. It was one of the most amazing experiences I have ever had.
Oh, it was great. And the good news is nobody believes him anymore. I wanted to tell you, a great job throughout the campaign. I saw you in April and things didn't look so great then. And then you guys flipped it. You did an awesome job. So way to go on behalf of America.
Well, you called this from the beginning. You said from the beginning we need to pray for victory, that the single greatest tool in our arsenal was prayer. I didn't always believe that. I admit it, that, I wandered far from the Lord earlier in my life. But there are no atheists in foxholes. And when a vindictive and politically motivated government decided to destroy me and my family, and I had the opportunity to meet with Franklin Graham, who's a great, great advocate for the Lord, and I asked for his advice, he said, let me give you the best piece of advice I can. He said, turn your burden over to the Lord. Confess your sins, pledge to walk in his way. Mr. Stone, I guarantee you that if you will do that, and if you will do it with all your heart, and you will do it with all sincerity, the Lord, he said, will lift you up, and he will protect you from your persecutors. I've known other men in your position. I gave them the same advice, and the Lord came through from them. Now, but it has to be real, he said. It can't be half-hearted. It can't be a head fake. It can't be theater. You have to put your fate, your future, and that of your family in the hands of the Lord. And I was skeptical at first. I admit it. And then I went out in this open field where he was having a revival. And he's very, very effective. I met Billy Graham when I was just a boy working for Richard Nixon. I think he was one of the greatest men of the 20th century. I remember it like it was yesterday. And Franklin Graham is also very effective. He has a different style. But when he said, I don't care whether your problem is alcoholism or drug abuse or health problems or financial problems or family problems, the Lord will lift you up if you put your faith in Jesus. So those who want to live forever with our Heavenly Father, stand up now, confess your sins, pledge to sin no more, and join the family of Christ. Ask him to come into your life as your personal Savior. And without missing a beat, unashamed, unafraid, unembarrassed, I stood up with 200 other Christians. And Jonathan, I changed my life, and everything in my life changed from that moment. It was like having cement blocks removed.
First? What was the first thing that you could tell something was different?
Several days later, we learned that the jury forewoman in my trial had lied under oath. She said in jury selection she didn't know who I was. She had never heard of me. She'd been attacking me on Facebook and Twitter, but she had it on a private setting. And my lawyers, in due diligence, in examining the jurors to try to determine what prospective jurors to object to, couldn't see it. And she lied about it, and we learned that 48 hours after I asked Jesus to come into my life. How's that for cause and effect?
Oh, yeah, that sounds right. God is a great... People think it's just joining a religion, but God's alive, and he made promises in his word. And the Bible, it's the key scripture, Numbers 23:19. God is not a man that he should lie, nor the Son of Man that he should change his mind. If he spoke something, he'll bring it to pass. If he said it, he'll carry it through. So nothing's new. People have been persecuted since the Old Testament, since the dawn of time. And God said, when you serve him, he won't allow evil people to have their way against his children. So that's great. What else did you notice was different?
Look, I had a succession of miracles in my life. You can't call it anything other than that. So not only did the Lord answer my prayers, because I prayed for President Trump to understand that I had really done nothing wrong, that I was charged in a process crime that they invented. There was no Russian collusion. There was no WikiLeaks collaboration. There was nothing illegal that I had done in my advocacy of the election of Donald Trump. But my lawyers wouldn't let me talk to the president. The president's lawyers wouldn't let me talk to me. So everything he knew about my case had to be seen through the prism of the media. Well, you know how that is. They lie. They lie constantly. They can't be trusted about anything. I don't get my news from CNN for the same reason I don't eat out of the toilet. So I had to pray that the president would hear my prayers, that the Lord would open his heart to know the truth. And yes, he commuted my sentence just 48 hours before they told me to report to a dank Georgia prison. I was 68 years old at the time with a lifetime history of asthma. The Bureau of Prisons insisted there were no COVID cases in this prison. But an African-American woman who was the head of the prison guards union saw that on TV. Somehow she tracked down one of my lawyers and she said, it's a lie. There are more than 200 cases here that they're concealing. Your client will not be safe if he is sent here. There are no provisions here for safety. And we appealed to the judge. Given my age and my health condition, she denied that appeal. So the Lord answered my prayer there. And then in Christmas, he answered my prayer yet again when the president gave me a full and unconditional pardon. And it was shortly after that that we learned that my wife was diagnosed with very aggressive stage 4 cancer. Now,
What year? What year was she diagnosed?
Well, that would have been immediately after I was pardoned. So that was in 2020. And today, through the healing power of Jesus Christ, and the will of this incredible Cuban American who is one of the toughest women you've ever met. She refused to die. And she is today, thank God, thank Jesus Christ, she is cancer free. Test just 2 weeks ago.
That is awesome.
Well, it just proves that Jesus Christ can do anything, that there's nothing the Lord cannot do.
Anything you ask, that's prayer. Anything whatsoever you ask when you pray, believing you shall receive it. So people get talked out of believing, but we were having meetings all week, and Evangelist Jesse Duplantis was here, and he said children are born believers. Somebody has to teach them to doubt. And you see that. When you have kids, they believe, and then stuff happens to people as they grow older. And that's why Christ said to have childlike faith, not childish faith, childlike faith, where you have to learn to put all your jaded parts of your heart aside and give God a fresh chance and not hold what other people have done to you against God, because God will never fail you.
That is the single hardest part, I must tell you, as someone who is half Sicilian, is to forgive those who have trespassed against me. It's the most difficult thing about following his word. But I've managed to do it. My Sicilian temper, I can keep it in check, and I've forgiven those who tried to destroy me. I actually pray for them. It's very, very difficult, but there's no sense in holding bitterness. It is not God's way.
It hurt. God put that in place. When I was younger as a Christian, I felt like rules like that were just to make it difficult, for no reason. But then you realize bitterness makes you sick. Bitterness breaks your body down. So when God tells, it's not like God said nothing would happen to those people. He said, don't repay, because vengeance is mine and I will repay. So you let God will judge people that do evil to others. But if you internalize it, then it harms you. Whereas if you let it go and can keep your joy and your pure heart, then you can enjoy life. Because we've all met people that have millions of dollars in the bank, but they're so bitter from what people have done that they're more miserable than people in Section 8 housing. So that what God instructed us to do, allows us to enjoy life.
That is absolutely true. And what I tell people when they want to talk about this horrific experience is it's really simple. I am very definitely, my wife and I are materialistically much poorer. We lost our home. We lost my car. I had to sell my electric guitar. That broke my heart. We lost our insurance. We lost our savings. But none of that matters because we are spiritually so much richer. You cannot imagine the difference that it has made in my own life. Folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Pastor Jonathan Shuttlesworth of the Revival Today Church. He has thriving churches in both Texas and Pennsylvania. He is an outspoken apostle for the Lord. I've seen him preach. He is mesmerizing. Pastor, you work very, very hard. You're on the road constantly spreading his good word. When we come back, I want to talk about this election because when I saw you, you're right. Things looked difficult. Things looked uphill. Things looked dark. But you told me, you may not remember this, you told me that the Lord would see us through. You told me that Donald Trump would win if we prayed. And you were absolutely right. When we come back, Jonathan Shuttlesworth, the founder and pastor of the Revival Today Church, joins us to talk about this historic moment and why all of us were born for a moment such as this. We'll be right back.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
And we're back. I'm your host, Roger Stone, at the microphone, and my co-pilot, Jonas Jackson, on the board. And we're talking to Jonathan Shuttlesworth, the evangelist who heads the Revival Today Church. Jonathan Shuttlesworth's life and ministry are marked by his unwavering commitment to spreading the gospel and transforming people's lives. Through his passionate preaching, his media outreach, and his philanthropic activities, he's had a lasting impact on the lives of countless individuals, including yours truly. Jonathan Shuttlesworth, you do a great TV and radio show. It's extremely well produced, but it's also really provocative. You inspire, you challenge, you encourage believers in the faith. I've become a fan. I try to repost you on social media every time I see the show. People don't know how hard this is. This is hard work, folks. People think, oh, you're just talking. How hard can that be? No, it's hard work. You are the hardest working man in this business, in my opinion, and I work with a lot of great pastors. Tell us where people can go to hear your radio show and see your TV show.
I have a YouTube channel. They seem to be leaving people up these days, so it's Jonathan Shuttlesworth. And then I have a website, revivaltoday.com, revivaltoday.com, and that has all the stuff on it. I appreciate the kind words. And you reposting me gives it a big boost. And I've had a bunch of people pray to receive Jesus Christ or come to the church and get saved there, get healed, or come for prayer because of you reposting it. It spreads it to people that don't go to church. So I really owe you a debt of gratitude. Thanks.
It is my honor and my privilege. You know, I think that to be a successful politician or a successful pastor, you have to be entertaining. The only thing worse in politics than being wrong, of course, is being boring. And I suspect that's also true when it comes to pastors. Now, I go to the Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church in Coral Ridge, Florida.
James Kennedy's old place.
Unbelievable, dedicated by the great Billy Graham. We have an amazing young pastor, Rob Pacenza. He, like me, he was baptized as a Catholic. He's like you. He is a fire and brimstone preacher of the truth, very dynamic. I'm happy today to say that this morning in church, he was able to read a letter from President Donald J. Trump to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the church's founding by the great D. James Kennedy. He is very much in your style, Jonathan. He is really a guy who connects and tells the people the unvarnished truth and the promise of our Lord. There aren't many like you. There are some, as you know, there's some pastors who take this view that, well, we can't get involved in politics. We don't want to say anything controversial. Transgenderism, you know, I really don't want to talk about it. And some of this other stuff, I don't know what these pastors can be thinking. Talk to us about that.
There was a day where you could have stayed out of it. You know, not long ago, 1996, Bill Clinton was against gay marriage. The Republicans were against gay marriage. There was no such thing as transgender youth. You could have kind of stayed out of politics because there were small differences between the parties. But then it took a turn at some point when you had Beto O'Rourke get on CNN and say that if churches won't marry same-sex couples, we're going to strip their tax-exempt status. Okay, now you pick the fight. So you can't tell churches you're going to close them down, and then we have no right to say anything. And if one political party puts the church in their crosshairs, you not only have a right to say something about it, you have an obligation to say something about it.
Yeah, people may not be familiar with the Johnson Amendment. This was pushed by Senator Lyndon Baines Johnson when he was a Senate Majority Leader. And it basically says that if a church is a nonprofit, they're not allowed to talk about public affairs or political issues from the pulpit, lest they be stripped of their tax exemption. Now, the reason he did that was because there were some bold pastors in Texas who were speaking about the epic corruption of one Lyndon Baines Johnson. And President Trump has cited this as something he wants to change. I think now in a second term, he will change. I have to tell you, I was with the president the other night. My wife and I, he was at our wedding. He's been a friend of 45 years. He loves my wife. He couldn't get over how great she looks after her successful battle with cancer. He very kindly invited us to watch the fight with him, the Tyson-Jake Paul fight. There was just a few people in the room, Tucker Carlson, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, who candidly I'd never met before, but who I admired from afar because I knew his moment would come. After he was selected, some of my Republican friends and others said, "Oh, why'd you take him? He wasn't the right guy." I said, "No, you're wrong. You got to give him a chance. His defining moment will come, and you'll see that he was exactly the right person."
And of course, his defining moment was when?
In that debate. When he proved. By the way, he left some openings. He could have gone after Tampon Tim on a number of issues, but he had an more important mission, which was to erase this false image of him that they had created, that he was some kind of troglodyte, some kind of Neanderthal, some kind of a woman hater. Those are all lies. So he chose a different strategic path than I would have, because I'm a warrior. I'm a political killer. I admit it. Politics ain't beanbag. But he decided to go a different route and show people who he really was and what he was really about. And I have to say it was very effective. I met him the other night for the first time. I really, really like him.
I like him too. His stepbrother pastors a church in just outside of Cincinnati in my same fellowship.
That's amazing. I did not know that.
Yeah, he's got a minister in his family. He did great. It's amazing. From the beginning of October through election night, how things turned around. It was like, it was miraculous. It was insane to watch one campaign get their legs kicked out from under them and the other one just make one right move after another. And it's going to buy us a window of time. I really feel, let me ask you how you feel, because you would know more than me. How much progress do you think can be made in these next 2 years? Because it seems like the communism is getting steamrolled like immediately, not even waiting until January.
Well, let me put it this way. Whenever I would go to the grocery store or the drugstore, frankly, I would wear a hat and dark glasses, and I would try to not dress in my normal, somewhat more provocative manner, because I didn't want to be harassed. I didn't want people yelling at me. I didn't want to get into fights. I just wanted to buy my groceries, pick up what Mrs. Stone told me to get, and come home. And then the day after the election, I decided to go to the grocery store. I didn't change my clothes. I was wearing a bold Trump T-shirt. And it was amazing to me the number of people who came up to me to thank me, to tell me that they prayed for me and my family, that they prayed for the president, that they had a new optimism. And here's the amazing thing, Jonathan. The disproportionate number, I'm talking about 20, 25 people, a disproportionate number of them were African Americans. Now, that's not a scientific sample, but it really did warm my heart. There's a change coming in this country. I'll be honest with you. I have one concern. The Christian prophet, Robin Bullock, is a friend of mine. Kim Clement's daughter, Donna Clement Petruska, is a good friend of mine. They both told me about the book of Saul. They both told me about the time of the two kings, and they told me about David, the legitimate king, and Saul, the king whose kingdom was stripped from him by the Lord because he disobeyed the Lord. And they told me that Saul tried to kill David 3 times, they said. And they said it foreshadowed the assassination attempt on the president. So, look, I'm not a biblical scholar as you are, but my greatest single fear, and I pray about this every night, is for the safety of the president. They clearly have tried to kill him twice. That is indisputable. We haven't been told the full truth about those incidents. I doubt we ever will be. I wrote a best-selling New York Times best-selling book on the Kennedy assassination. The parallels are very eerie to me. That is my greatest single concern. It's not Donald Trump's resolve. It is not his intention. It is not his plan. He's a different person. I can tell you, after being spared by the Lord in Butler, Pennsylvania, he has a serenity and a sureness about him and a confidence about him, and he's a very confident guy. But he knows that his life was spared for a greater purpose, and therefore that's my number one concern. We got about 1 minute to go. Give us your final thoughts.
My final thought would be just to pray this. Father, I thank you for Roger Stone. I thank you for bringing him through all the trials that you brought him through. And I pray that 2025 would be the best year him and his wife have ever had. I pray that all of the money that their enemies tried to take, your word says the thief must pay back 7 times what was stolen. I pray the end of Job's life would be the story of Roger's life. And you would give him the greatest Thanksgiving, Christmas, and 2025 that he's ever known. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen, my brother. Pastor Jonathan Shuttlesworth, such a great privilege to have you here today on The Roger Stone Show.
Thank you.
All right, folks, don't go away, because coming right along is my fellow Italo-American, Joe Piscopo. This guy has a set of pipes himself. He's an amazing entertainer. He's an amazing host here on 77 WABC. And he pays tribute to perhaps the greatest, well, after Al Jolson, the second greatest entertainer of all time, the great Frank Sinatra, the chairman of the board. So don't go away, because my buddy Joe Piscopo will be right along with Sundays with Sinatra. Thanks for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show, my friends, and God bless you.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.